Hello, friends. A warm morning to all of you, and welcome to the chapter Accounting for Consignment. Guys, first let me start this chapter with intro. Let me give a good introduction. Friends, most of the times, business people want to expand their business activities. Consignment type of business is one type of strategy they might play to expand their business activities. To put it in better manner, let me take a simple case to explain the entire process of consignment and what it is all about. Let us assume myself is Razu Traders. I'm conducting my business activities in AP or Telangana, whatever the case may be. So let us assume I'm conducting my business activities in Telangana, strictly in Hyderabad. So I'm the manufacturer of textiles. So I have certain manufacturing factory. I have a factory premises. So generally we are manufacturing textiles. Let us assume we have textiles manufacturing unit. Now, from the textile manufacturing unit, in generally we are selling the goods in the state of Telangana or in very near places to Hyderabad. Now, just we want to expand our business activities, not only in Telangana, just we want to expand the business activities to other states. You can call it as Tamil Nadu. So many other states, just for the convenience, just I'm taking only one state, which is Tamil Nadu. Now, my problem in Tamil Nadu is I'm not having any customer base. There is no customer base in Tamil Nadu for me. And there are no resources as well. No resources means, sir, I'm not having a proper channel. I'm not having a proper trading premises. Maybe we are not having any connections with employees and such all other stuff in Tamil Nadu. That is the basic major problem for me. Now, what I will do, I will approach one person in Tamil Nadu who is having good customer base in Tamil Nadu. That group is Iyengar Traders. Let us assume the group name is Iyengar Traders. Just I approached. Sir, what is the advantage with Iyengar Traders? They are already having good customer base in Tamil Nadu state. If any particular brand or group of goods, if introduced by them, then they have the capability to sell in the Tamil Nadu market. That's why I approached them. Now the situation is we are producing goods with our own brand. We are sending such goods to Iyengar Traders. On behalf of Razu Traders, just Iyengar Traders sold such goods to customers. Just a moment. Now Iyengar Traders will sell such goods to different customers. These all are group of customers. Now, the entire type of business activity with respective to sending goods by Razu traders to Iyengar traders, and Iyengar traders again will send such goods to the customers. Such entire process is technically known as consignment. This entire process is technically known as consignment. So simply speaking, what exactly the meaning of consignment is all about, sir? Consignment is a special type of transaction in which one party will send goods to the other party for the purpose of selling of goods by the later party to the customers. Now, the advantage in case of consignment business is, now the existing business will not disturb. Raju Traders is having their own existing business within the premises, or sorry, within the places of Telangana. Such business will not disturb. And again, there are no need to put any additional efforts to conduct their business activities in Tamil Nadu. Do you understand? Because in Tamil Nadu, Iyengar traders will have a good customer base. On behalf of Raju traders, simply Iyengar traders can portray in the market and they can easily sell all such goods to their customers. Do you understand? Now, coming here, sir, technically, Raju traders is known as consignor. Technically, Raju traders is known as consignor. And Iyengar traders is known as consignee. This party is known as consignee. You know, anyway, customers are the customers. Now, the person who sending goods in the consignment business is technically known as consignor. The person who receiving such goods and ultimately send such goods to the customers is known as consignee. And consignee ultimately to whom such goods are sold is known as customers. That means in case of consignment business, totally three different parties involved. One is consignor, another one is consignee, and the other party is customers. Do you agree? Now, sir, consignee will not represent consignor at free of cost. I mean, consignee will definitely expect something from the consignor. Why consignee will provide a free service to consignor? No one is ready to provide the free service, right? That's why consignee is going to expect certain commission from the consignor. Now, such commission is in generally based on sales made by the consignee. If consignee made certain sales, then on such sales, consignor is ready to provide certain commission. That means for consignee, the income is commission. So then what about consignor? The income for the consignor is if consignee ultimately send such goods to the customers, then the sales generated by the consignee on behalf of the consignor is the income or the revenue flow for the consignor. The next question coming into my mind is, sir, then what are the expenses for the consignor, sir? Now, in the entire consignment business, the expenses expended either by consignor or the expenses expended by the consignee or the expenses to consignor only. Why, sir? Here, consignor-consignee relationship is not seller and buyer relationship. The relationship in between consignor and consignee is principal agent relationship. The relationship is principal agent relationship. I mean, consignee is just an agent of consignor. Consignor is principal of consignee. That means if any expenses are expended by consignor, those are consignment expenses. And if any expenses expended by the consignee on behalf of consignor, those are also expenses in consignor point of view only. So simply in consignment business, what will going to occur, sir? Sir, I have certain business. Without disturbing that business, I'm entering into a contract with another person. That person is representing me only in another market, and I'll send the goods to the other party. Then on behalf of me, the other party sold such goods in that market, and I will generate revenue through such sales. As a matter of sales done by the other person, just I'm providing certain commission to the other party. then the entire nature of business activity is known as consignment business. Now, in such particular consignment business, three different parties are involved. One is consignor, the party who sending the goods, and the another party is consignee, the party who receiving the goods, and another party is customers, that is ultimately to whom we are selling the goods. And the relation between consignor and consignee is principal agent relationship. And the income for the consignor is nothing but sales generated by the consignee is nothing but income for the consignor. And the expenses for the consignor are goods which are sent by consignor to the consignee. Such goods are there, such goods are expenses for the consignor. And certain expenses may be expended by the consignor himself. For example, to send goods from one place to the another place, that is consignor premises to the consignee premises, consignor might incur certain expenses, that is transportation expenses. During that transport, maybe certain insurance expenses, maybe certain loading charges. Do you understand? All such are direct expenses incurred by the consignor, maybe packing expenses. Okay, so all such expenses are directly incurred by the consignor. And before such goods are received to the premises of consignee, consignee also may incur certain expenses like unloading charges. Do you understand? Transportation expenses to the warehouse of the consignee. Okay, maybe certain octroi duties if they are coming from different countries, maybe clearing charges, customs duties, all such expenses are also incurred by the consignee before reaching such goods to the consignee premises. Next, after reaching the consignee premises, again consignee might incur certain more other expenses. That is, maybe certain advertising expenses, maybe the rental charges of the premises, maybe salaries payable to their staff, electricity expenses. Do you understand, guys? All such expenses are incurred by the consignee after reaching of such goods in the consignee's premises. And one more thing, the commission payable by the consignor to the consignee is also the expense. Sir, whether such expenses are incurred by consignor or such expenses are incurred by the consignee, irrespective of that, those expenses are expense for consignor only. The reason is just consignee is acting an agent to the consignor. He will receive the goods, he'll sell the goods, he'll get the commission. There is no other relationship to the consignee to the consignment business. What are the expense or what are the income? It is ultimately related to consignor only. Even though the physical transfer of goods happened from consignor to consignee, but the legal ownership of the goods is still lying with the consignor only. The reason is the relationship in between consignor and consignee is principal agent relationship. This is a small introduction part for understanding the consignment type of business. Now, hope you understand who is consignor, who is consignee, what the consignment type of business is all about. Is it okay, guys? Now, concentrate, all of you. Sir, in this chapter, what we are trying to learn, sir? What we are trying to learn? The objective of this chapter. Next, I'm discussing things related to objective of this chapter. The objective is only one thing, sir. Knowing profit or loss from consignment business. Knowing profit or loss from consignment business, number one. Number two, accounting treatment in the books of consignor, accounting treatment in the books of consignee. So totally, we are going to see three things in this chapter. Knowing profit or loss from the consignment business. In consignor point of view, how much profit or loss he is generating through the consignment business. Sir, through his regular activity, how much profit or loss he is generating. That's we know how to calculate profit or loss from the regular business. If I prepare the trading and profit and loss account, then I will know how much profit or loss I'm generating. through my regular business activity. But through this consignment business, how much profit or loss I'm generating, how I know, sir? That thing we are going to learn from this chapter. Next, accounting treatment in the books of consignor. Sir, accounting treatment in the books of consignor means now consignor is going to entering into different transactions with the consignee or with the other parties. Relation, I mean, with respect to consignment business. For example, consignor sending goods to the consignee. What is the journal entry, sir? Consignor incurred certain expenses directly related to consignment. What is the entry, sir? If consignee sold goods to the outside party, that is customers, what is the journal entry in the books of consignor, sir? Certain commission should need to be payable by consignor to the consignee. What is the journal entry, sir? Do you understand? Ultimately, after happening of the sales in the premises of consignee, the sale proceeds should need to be transferred by consignee to the consignor. Am I right? Now, at that point of time, at the time of receipt of net sale proceeds from the consignee by the consignor, what is the journal entry, sir? Okay, such all things we are going to learn in this chapter. Now, coming to consignee books, sir, in consignee books, what will be the accounting treatment? I mean, for consignee, commission is income. Am I right? For consignor, which is an expense, for consignee, which is an income. How to record such commission? Whenever I am collecting collections from the customers, I should need to again repayable to the consignor. How it should need to be uh, passed as a journal entry in the books of consigning. Do you understand? All such different issues we are going to learn in this chapter. It is too early to discuss all such issues at this stage. Let me give certain time space and I will discuss one by one, step by step. Okay. So still now we are only discussed two things. One is introduction. In introduction, what is the meaning of consignment and all the different parties involved in the consignment and how the consignment type of business is going to happen. And another thing is the objective of this chapter, knowing profit or loss from the consignment business and accounting treatment in the books of consignor and accounting treatment in the books of consignee. Now concentrate, guys, all of you. Sir, here consignor exist. Consignor. Here consignee exist. Here customer exist. Total three parties, no? Here is consignor, consignee, customer. Concentrate, all of you. Sir, even I'm not touching any single line in our material. Still, we are in one note. We are discussing something related to consignment still. Now, you know, in case of consignment business, what will happen? Consignor will send goods to the consignee, and a consignee ultimately sold such goods to customers. First, consignor will send goods to consignee. Then consignee will sell such goods to customers. Am I right? Now, at the time of sending the goods, consignor may incur certain expenses. These are popularly known as expenses incurred by consignor. Expenses incurred by consignor. I already told you which type of expenses he might incur. If you think practically, then you will get everything. At the time of sending goods by one party to another party, loading charges may incur. We should need to load na. Loading charges. Next, transportation expenses he might incur. Transportation expenses. That is transport expenses. He may incur the transit insurance. Transit insurance. Hmm? Now, after incurring all such expenses, those goods are received by consignee. Now, in this process, consignor will prepare one document. Consignor is going to prepare one document. Such document is technically known as pro forma invoice. Pro forma invoice. Sir, what is this pro forma invoice, sir? You know the sales invoice, right? At the time of sales made by one person to another party, seller will give sales invoice to the customer. How the sales invoice will be? In sales invoice, invoice number will be there. Type of goods will be there. Quantity will be there. Price will be there. Quantity multiplied with price. Then automatically total value will be there. If GST is applicable, they will add the GST and the total amount will be displayed. That is the general invoice. Tell me, guys. Now the pro forma invoice is also as like a sales invoice, but we cannot call it as a sales invoice. But we should not call it as a sales invoice. The reason is now here we are simply sending goods to the consignee, not in seller buyer relationship, in principal agent relationship. That's why which is not treated as a sales invoice, which is treated as a pro forma invoice. So then pro forma invoice, how it should need to be represent as like in the sales invoice, how the item should need to be represent in the same manner we are going to represent. I mean, if you consider this as a pro forma invoice, let us assume, sir, to whom you are sending, sir? To, for example, I am sending to Iyengar traders, right? It will represent to Iyengar traders, Chennai. Goods, textiles, let us assume, okay, XL size shirts, L size shirts, okay, small size shirts, only I'm sending shirts, let us assume. Sir, quantity, here 1000, here 500, sir, here 750. Price per unit, here this is 500, here this is 750, here this is 1000. Okay, just I made certain amounts. This is number of units, this is price per unit, this is total. You can make it total from Raju traders. Do you understand? Here itself, you may also represent if any expenses incurred by you. Okay, expenses incurred also you can represent like loading charges, transportation expenses, transit insurance. Okay, in generally goods are transferred from one place to another place through waybill. Actually, e-waybill. It is known as electronic waybill, which is generated in GST portal. If any e-waybill number is available, such e-waybill number also you should need to mention. Because certain point of time what will happen, illegal goods may also be transferred from one place to another place, or without involvement of the GST also people are simply selling goods from goods by one party to another party. To curb all such malpractices, GST department introduced the system, call it as waybill system, e-waybill. Okay, in taxation you may aware such things as well. So such e-waybill number also you should need to mention. Now this pro forma invoice document will act as an evidence that consignor send certain goods to the consignee. And consignee will also verify the physical goods along with the pro forma invoice, whether all the physical goods we received or not. So that's why pro forma invoice will act as evidence both in consignor point of view as well as consignee point of view. Do you understand, all of you? Fine. Sir, after that, what consignee will do, sir? Consignee physically received such goods and he will check such goods along with the pro forma invoice. Then he will start selling such goods to their customers. Am I right? Now, consignee started selling goods to the customers and he sold the goods. For certain period ended, or for the year ended, what will happen? Consignee may not sell all the goods to their customers. Maybe certain goods he may held as closing stock. Definitely. What happened? Certain goods held as closing stock. And certain goods he already sold to their customers. Now, after occurring of sales, apart from the closing stock, consignee will get certain sale proceeds from their customers. Such sale proceeds ultimately should need to be handed out to whom? Consignor. Now, what consignor will do? Consider all of you. What consignor will do? Consignor will generate certain sale proceeds. Yes. Out of such sale proceeds, he may reduce his commission because that commission belongs to him. He is conducting the business activity for that commission only. That is, he will reduce his commission. That's fine. And if any expenses which are incurred by the consignee less expenses incurred by consignee will also going to reduce. Now the remaining amount is payable to whom? Consignor. So periodical settlements in generally happening. No one is waiting till the year end actually. So certain time period they will put. Okay, they will consignee will check what are the total sale proceeds in certain time period. Then he will reduce the commission on that. Then he will reduce the expenses which are incurred by the consignee. Then the remaining proceeds or net sale proceeds simply make it transfer to the consignor. That is ultimately settlement of consignor account in consignee books. With that, the transactions all are closed and the periodic transactions are automatically closed. Do you understand the internal structure of the consignment business, all of you? And the next thing is, sir, just here you wrote expenses incurred by consignee simply. Which type of expenses are in generally incurred by consignee, sir? Concentrate, all of you. Expenses incurred by consignee at two different time intervals. One is before reaching goods to consignee premises, after reaching goods to consignee premises. Sir, before reaching goods to consignee premises, which type of expenses he might incur, sir? Now, once the goods received, we need to unload. Yes, that is unloading charges. Sir, if goods coming from ship, then we need to pay certain customs duty or octroi or clearing charges like that. Tell me, guys. Second. Yeah, customs duty. Clearing charges. Octroi duty. Octroi means one type of transportation expenses. Okay, so like this, certain expenses consignee also may incur before reaching such goods to his premises. For example, from the place of, from the dockyard or from the seashore, if the warehouse of the consignee is little bit distance, then you should also incur traveling expenses to warehouse. Tell me, guys. So such all expenses are, we can consider as expenses incurred by the consignee before reaching such goods to the consignee premises. Just let me add here, transport expenses to warehouse. All those expenses are incurred by consignee before reaching such goods to the consignee premises. Sir, after reaching such goods to the consignee premises, which type of expenses consignee may incur, sir? You know, godown rent or warehouse rent, that is warehouse rent, warehouse rent, warehouse insurance. Okay. He might also incur salaries, advertisement expenses, extra, etc., etc., etc. Now, here my point is, sir, whether the expenses are incurred by consignor or whether the expenses incurred by the consignee, ultimately these are expenses to whom, sir? Consignor only, not to the consignee. Just the consignee, what he will do? He will sell the goods. He will reduce his commission. He will reduce the expenses incurred by himself as well. Then the net sale proceeds simply make it transfer to the consignor. That means expenses incurred by the consignor as well as expenses incurred by the consignee is ultimately expenses to whom? Consignor only. These are not expenses to consignee. That point, please, all of you bear in your mind. Is it okay, guys? All of you. Sir, with this diagrammatic representation, what you ultimately try to tell here, sir? In case of consignment business, consignor will send certain goods to the consignee. During this process, consignor will incur certain expenses, which are popularly known as expenses incurred by the consignor, like loading charges, transportation, packing, transit insurance. And at this particular time, consignor is going to prepare a pro forma invoice which contains the quantum of the goods he is sending and the price at which he is sending and the party to whom we should need to send and the date. All such things he will clearly mention in the document, which is acting as an evidence that goods are sent by consignor to the consignee. Then consignee will verify all such goods along with the pro forma invoice. And before reaching such goods, consignee might incur certain expenses like octroi, customs duty, and unloading charges. Then after incurring such expenses, consignee will receive such goods into his premises. Then after reaching such goods to the consignee premises, also he might incur certain expenses like salaries, godown rent, and certain all other expenses. Then consignee will ultimately sell such goods to their customers. Then he will recover the money from their customers. He will send the amount after reduction of his commission as well as expenses incurred by the consignee to the consignor. After reduction of commission, after reduction of expenses incurred by the consignee, the net sale proceeds is ultimately handed over to consignor. And consignee may end up with certain goods which are not yet sold out, which are generally known as closing stock. Then again, such closing stock will acting as a opening stock for the next time period. Guys, I'm so sorry. Beside my home, a small disturbance. Okay, fine. Just ignore all such things. Come back. Now, sir, consignee is ultimately hand over the net sale proceeds to the consignor, right? Then at that particular point of time, consignee will prepare one document, which is technically known as account sales, which is known as account sales. Sir, in account sales, which information will be displayed by consignee, sir? What are the total gross sales made by me and the commission related to such sales and expenses incurred by me and the net amount payable to the consignor? Simply he will provide such information, and based on the account sales, consignor will verify how much sales actually generated by the consignee, and how much closing stock is there, and what is the total commission related to consignee, and which type of expenses incurred by the consignee, and net amount, how much I received. Literally consignor will check. So that means totally two documents here prima facie acting as an evidence that consignor is sending goods to the consignee, as well as consignee sent the ultimate cash payment to the consignor. One evidence or one document is acting as an evidence for sending of goods by consignor to the consignee, and another document is acting as an evidence that consignee is sending the ultimate net sale proceeds to the consignor. Do you understand? Now, sir, with all such things, how we should fulfill the three objectives, sir? I mean, how consignor will check how much profit or loss he is generating from consignment business, and related to all other transactions, how consignor will provide accounting treatment in his books, and how the consignee will provide journal entries with respect to the consignment business in his books. We'll going to check, and we are going to discuss majorly. Is it okay, guys, all of you? Sir, now this session we started with intro. After that, I explained the objective, and we are explaining the consignment business in detail, little bit in detail. Now concentrate. Now something, let me discuss with our material, then we will further move on with the objectives, guys. So I don't want to directly move on with the objective. First, let me check certain content with the material. We not yet discussed anything. Accounting for consignment. So the chapter itself is accounting for consignment. What we are trying to learning from this chapter, I already clearly explained to you. First, let us start the journey with the meaning of consignment. Consignment is a special type of transaction in which one entity sends goods to another entity for selling the goods of the farmer for a predetermined commission. Revenue from consignment business is recognized by the consignor on sale of goods by the consignee. We already told you, sir, for consignor, when he will get the real revenue, sir, if the goods are ultimately sold by consignee to the customer, not at the time of goods sent by consignor to the consignee. So the same point here he represented, when we need to recognize the revenue in the books of consignor at the time of goods sold by consignee to the customer as per AS9. I think so one of the standard also we are going to learn at the end of our syllabus, AS9, where we are specifically discussing this type of transactions also. Next, parties involved in the consignment. The parties involved in consignment business are consignor, consignee, and the customer. Consignor, who is consignor, sir? It is the party who sends the goods to its agent for sale of goods. The consignor may be a manufacturer or a wholesaler. The consignor is the principal in principal agent relationship of consignment business. Everything discussed by me. Consignee. Consignee, it is the party to whom the goods are sent on consignment basis, or simply the party who receives such goods. It sells the goods received on consignment basis and acts as agent in a consignment relationship. In case of the consignment, consignor is the principal, consignee is an agent. Next, documents related to consignment transactions. Consignment business requires certain specific documents for its operations. These documents are pro forma invoice and account sales. Pro forma invoice. This document is issued by the consignor to its agent at the time of sending of the goods. It mentions various details regarding the goods sent, that is quantity of the goods consigned, cost or invoice price of the goods, expenses incurred in relation to such goods, and the minimum selling price at which the consignee should need to sell to their customers. All such information should need to be displayed in the pro forma invoice. This document acts as an evidence of dispatch of goods from the end of the consignor. Its format resembles that of a regular invoice. I'll show you a clear-cut format through the CMU Institute resource. All of you come here. This is a pro forma invoice format. Pro forma invoice format. So no need to record, just to see how the format will be. Sir, ourself is XYZ cloth merchant. So as how Razu Traders is ourself, here XYZ cloth merchant is the owner or the consignor. He is sending goods to Kamal Garments, Guwahati. Guwahati. We are in Ahmedabad. We are in Ahmedabad based trader. We are sending goods to the Guwahati on consignment basis. Now this is the pro forma invoice. As on which date you are sending the goods? March 17, 2022. 1,200 t-shirts, 500 formal shirts at the rate of so and so prices. Clearly given. Charges, packing charges, carries, insurance. Now goods dispatched wide AWB number. AWB means waybill number. Waybill. I told you na. Waybill is mandatory at the time of sending goods from one place to another place. Okay. This is waybill dated so and so given and the total amount was given for XYZ cloth merchant Suresh Babu partner. Is it okay, guys? Like this, a simple pro forma invoice will be there. Next, come to account sales. What the account sales is all about, sir? Account sales is a document which is periodically sent by consignee to the consignor. It contains details of the transactions entered into by the consignee on behalf of the consignor. That is total sale proceeds realized, less consignee's commission, less expenses incurred by consignee in connection with the consignment, and the ultimate net amount remitted, and any other specific communication should be sent by consignee to the consignor, and such document is technically known as account sales. Let us have a look related to consignment, which is related to account sales as well. Now, if you check account sales, who will send? Account sales will be sent by Kamal Garments actually. Okay. Now account sales, gross sale proceeds. This is actually altogether different case given related to watches something. Watches and clocks. How much sales is generated. After that, consignee specific expenses just they are reducing. Unloading and carries to godown rent and insurance, selling expenses, commission, net sale proceeds. Okay. Less advance. What is this advance and all such issues? I will tell you at later point of time. Up to this, I told you these are net sale proceeds. These net sale proceeds should be payable by consignee to the consignor, which is known as account sales. Is it okay, guys? All of you? Fine. Now concentrate. Sir, certain times what will happen, you know? Before sending of goods by consignor to the consignee, certain times consignor will ask some advance from the consignee, because consignor is handovering certain value of goods to the consignee. Do you understand? Without believing anything, how we can simply hand over worth of goods to the consignee? So to create certain trust, or to create the liquidity as well to the consignor will definitely ask certain amount from the consignee. Sir, is it mandatory, sir? No, it is not mandatory. If consignor wants, then consignor may ask a certain amount as an advance from the consignee. Consider all of you. Then in case of consignment business, consignor may ask or consignor may receive certain advance amount from the consignee before sending goods by consignor to the consignee. Now, what is the impact of this advance, sir? The impact of advance is all the transactions are same. At the time of creation of account sales by the consignee, he will check the sale proceeds. He will reduce the commission. He will reduce the expenses incurred by the consignee as well, along with advance money already paid by consignee to the consignor also is going to reduce, because the advance money was paid by the consignee to the consignor earlier itself. That advance amount he will reduce, and the remaining amount only he is going to pay right now. Do you understand? The same thing actually here represented at the time of seeing the account sales. Any advance previously paid by the consignee to the consignor, such advance amount also reduced by the consignee, and the remaining amount only he is going to pay right now. That is the impact of this advance. Okay, let it be. Just leave it. Difference between consignment and regular sales. Sir, what is the difference between consignment type of sale and regular sale? Can you please tell me, all of you here, guys, by checking the consignment type of business? All of you, let me check. Sir, in case of the regular course of sale, the risk and rewards transferred at the time of sale itself. In case of consignment, I mean the risks and rewards automatically transferred to buyer. But in case of the consignment, the risks and rewards are still lying with the consignor only. That is the difference or not? When risks and rewards transferred, if consign is sold such goods ultimately to the customer, then the risk and reward transferred from consignor to the customer. But the risk and reward not transferred at the time of sending of goods by consignor to the consignee. So still the risks and rewards is lying with the consignor only. That is one difference. The parties involved in the consignment business are consignor and the consignee. But in the general sales, the parties involved are seller and the buyer. Sir, in case of normal seller and buyer relationship, there is no commission concept. But in case of the consignment, commission concept will be there. Tell me, guys, all these are various differences. Next, in case of consignment business, consignor will prepare the pro forma invoice. But in case of the regular sales, seller will prepare the sales invoice. In case of the consignment business, consignee may return certain goods to the consignor. For example, consignee is unable to sell certain goods. So there is no demand, or maybe certain damaged goods are there. Anything may happen. Then there may be a chance of returning of goods by consignee to the consignor. But in case of the general sales, buyer will not return such goods to the seller unless there is a specific agreement occurred in between seller and buyer. In general, returns are not possible. But sir, in certain predetermined terms and conditions are there in between seller and buyer, returns are also possible. All these are the basic differences in between consignment type of special transactions and the normal sale transactions. Do you agree? Without seeing all such things, I already discussed a lot of difference in between consignment nature of business and the general nature of sale transactions. Let me explain all such things through our material. Consignment. Sir, it is a business expansion technique. At the inception of this video lecture, I clearly told you consignment is one of the expansion business technique. Sir, general sales are normal primary business activity. This transaction is entered into by some entities. This transaction is entered into by every commercial organization. That means, sir, each and every organization may not involving the consignment related transactions. Those entities which want to expand their business activities through their agents, for such type of entities are only involving the consignment nature of transactions, but sales transactions are entertained by, or sales transactions are entered by each and every commercial organizations. The main parties are consignor, consignee, as well as customer. Here parties are buyer and seller. This is principal agent relationship. This is very important. This is debtor and creditor. That is customer and seller relationship only. Ownership and risk of the goods do not pass to the consignee. But here ownership and risk of the goods pass to the buyer. Tell me, guys, we already discussed all these things. Expenses incurred on consignment are borne by consignor only. Consignee will not incur any single rupee. All the expenses are expenses to the consignor only. Sir, before transferring of the goods, expenses are borne by the seller. But once the goods are transferred to the buyer, if any further expenses are incurred by buyer only. Here, prior to transfer of ownership of the goods, expenses incurred are borne by the seller. After that, expenses are incurred by buyer. Goods may be sent on consignment either at cost or invoice price. Sir, not yet discussed. Just leave it for the point number 7 for the time being. Okay, come to point number 8. When goods are sent on consignment, the consignor sends a pro forma invoice to the consignee. When goods sold, the seller issues a sales invoice. The consignee can return the goods sent to the consignor. Return is possible. In generally, buyer cannot return the goods sold to the seller unless the maturity is agreed. Now, let me write certain differences in between consignment business and the general business in my OneNote. Come here, which are differences between consignment and general business. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Maybe there may be a chance of asking a question, theory question. That's why just here I am writing. Very few points. Quickly we can finish it. Here it is consignment. Oh, let me write here. Here it is consignment. Here it is general business. Okay. Tell me guys, in case of consignment, risks and rewards, that is ownership and a risk, lying with whom? Consignor only. Here ownership and risk lying with whom guys? Buyer. After selling of the goods, the ownership and risk transfer to buyer. Next, coming to point number 2. Sir, in consignment, consignor and consignee parties exist. Here, seller and buyer. Here, the relationship is principal agent relationship. Principal agent relationship. Here, debtor creditor relationship. Am I right? Next, here pro forma invoice is prepared by consignor at the time of sending goods to the consignee. Here sales invoice is generated by the seller. Okay. Next, return of goods is possible. Return of goods by consignee is possible. In generally, there is no return of goods in generally. But if they agreed, they can return. Okay. Certain important points just I discussed, guys. These are more than enough. Yeah, these are more than enough. If you just remember these 5 differences, these are more than enough. Next. Concentrate, guys. Sir, with this diagram, what we are going to learn, sir? Concentrate. The entire consignment business, how it is going to occur. In diagrammatic representation, we already discussed in my OneNote, right? Such all the things what we discussed earlier, now I am going to explain through this diagram. Consignment related transactions. What are the various transactions are going to occur? First, the goods are sent by consignor to the consignee, which are technically known as goods on consignment, which are technically known as goods sent on consignment. Certain goods which are transferred by consignor to the consignee is known as goods sent on consignment. At this stage only, consignor is going to prepare pro forma invoice. Sir, before sending such goods by consignor to the consignee, consignor might also receive certain advance from the consignee, which is advance by consignee to the consignor. First, he will receive the advance. After that only, he will send the goods to the consignee, right? Then at the time of sending of goods by consignor to the consignee, certain expenses might be incurred by consignor, which are known as expenses by consignor. And certain expenses might be incurred by consignee also. Sir, consignee may incur certain expenses before reaching of such goods to his premises and after reaching of such goods to his premises. Before reaching of his goods to his premises is known as non-recurring expenses. After reaching of goods to his premises is known as recurring expenses. So you not told me earlier. Now I am telling you, concentrate. Here, expenses are of 2 types now. Before reaching goods to the consignee premises, if consignee incur any expenses which are known as non-recurring expenses, in bracket if you want, you can write non-recurring expenses. Sir, after reaching of goods to the consignee premises, the expenses are known as recurring expenses. Sir, why these are known as non-recurring and recurring, sir? Simply recurring means again there may be a scope of occurring. Sir, salaries are there, sir. Warehouse rent is there, sir. Advertising expenses are there, sir. All are recurring. Non-recurring means only one time it will happen. Sir, once at the time of goods sent by consignor to the consignee only it will happen. It will not happen at any other time interval. If consignor again send the goods in the next time period, then again he might incur. That's why these are generally non-recurring. So unloading charges, customs duty, clearing charges, transportation expenses to the warehouse, that is what are all the expenses incurred by the consignee before reaching such goods to his premises, we can call it as non-recurring expenses. After reaching such goods to his premises, what are all the expenses incurred by the consignee is known as recurring expenses. Sir, then what about expenses incurred by consignor? Those are non-recurring or recurring? These are non-recurring expenses. There is no difference between recurring and non-recurring in the case of consignor, because what are all the expenses which are incurred by the consignor are non-recurring. I mean, at the time of sending of goods only it is possible. Those are not recur anywhere in the time period. If goods are sent, then only they might incur. Sir, how many times goods in generally sent by consignor to the consignee? Not at each and every time interval. Do you understand? So they are having specific time periods based upon the sales generated by the consignee. Consignor will send certain goods to the consignee. That's it. So that's why again these expenses are, what are all the expenses incurred by the consignor? We can clearly note it as non-recurring expenses. Sir, why you are specifying non-recurring, recurring? Sir, you can understand in the next scenario why we are differentiating expenses incurred by consignor as well as expenses incurred by consignee, why we are treating expenses incurred by consignor as non-recurring and expenses incurred by consignee into recurring as well as non-recurring. Why we are differentiating all such things, you can understand at the next phase, guys. But for the time being, what you should need to understand, expenses on consignment, expenses incurred by consignor are non-recurring, and expenses incurred by the consignee before reaching the goods to the customer, that is consignee premises, non-recurring. After reaching such goods to the consignee premises, recurring. Okay. Then what the consignee will ultimately do, sir? Consignee will ultimately made such goods to the customers. Then the sale proceeds after reduction of his commission, after reduction of his expenses, after reduction of advance, is ultimately sent to consignor. These are the various transactions which were occurred in the consignment business. Is it okay, guys? All of you related to one by one. Here it clearly explained. Concentrate, all of you. Let me read quickly. Goods sent on consignment. If goods are sent by the consignor to the consignee, the goods are physically transferred, but the ownership risk and the property in goods remain with the consignor only. This transaction is recorded in the books of the consignor, but in the books of the consignee, no accounting is done for the same. Sir, that means at the time of sending of goods by the consignor to the consignee, we will pass the journal entry only in the books of consignor, not in the books of consignee. Yes. Who is the consignee? Consignee is just an agent. He will receive the goods, he will sold the goods. What is the relationship with such goods to the consignee? There is no relationship. Just consignee is acting as an receiver as well as seller. That's why at the time of receipt of goods by the consignee, there is no accounting treatment in the books of the consignee. Only consignor will only provide the accounting treatment. Sir, it is too early again to discuss all such issues. Just wait for some time. I will give good connection to each other, and without any hesitation, you can simply pass the journal entries for various transactions occurred in the consignment, both in the books of consignor as well as consignee. And you can also easily predict the profit or loss which is generated by the consignor. Okay, just give some time to me. Okay, these ultimately goods sent on consignment is nothing but the goods which are sent by consignor to the consignee in the consignment business is known as goods sent on consignment. Okay. Next, come to the next one. Advance by consignee to the consignor. This one also explained by me. In consignment business, the consignor usually send goods to the consignee after receiving adequate amount of advance from the consignee. Such advance money can be provided either through bank draft, that is DD, or the consignee may accept a bill of exchange in favor of the consignor. If at least consignee is unable to pay any check or DD, then consignor will tell that at least you can accept a bill. I will raise a bill, you can accept that bill. Why? Then consignor, after receiving such bill, he can make it discount in the bank, he will get the money, right? So that's why there is no difference between check and the bills receivable in consignor point of view. So such advance is later on adjusted when the money is remitted by consignee to the consignor. We already checked here. At the time of sending net sale proceeds by consignee to the consignor, consignee will reduce his commission, his own expenses, as well as advance which was previously paid by consignee to the consignor. The same thing here I explained. Next, expenses on consignment. These expenses are specifically incurred in relation to the consignment business, may be incurred either by consignor or may be incurred by the consignee. Expenses incurred by the consignor. Such expenses are usually incurred for sending goods to the consignee. Examples are carriage and freight incurred, packing charges, loading charges, export duty, transit insurance. These all are non-recurring in nature, only one time happen in the time period. If next time at the time of sending the goods, next time they might incur. That's why these are not regular. That's why non-recurring in nature. Expenses by consignee. The expenses are incurred by consignee are recovered from the consignor as adjusted against the amount due to the consignor in the account sales. These, what are all the expenses incurred by consignee, ultimately reduced from the sale proceeds, and the net sale proceeds only he will ultimately send to consignor. Such information clearly represent in account sales. Expenses by consignee may be of two types, recurring and non-recurring. What is the meaning of recurring expense? Recurring expense, sir, in our scenario, recurring expenses means expenses which are incurred by the consignee after reaching of such goods to his premises. Non-recurring expenses means those expenses incurred by the consignee before reaching of such goods to his premises. Now, first let us check the non-recurring expenses. Non-recurring expenses are incurred only once and are generally incurred prior to reaching the consignee's premises. Common non-recurring expenses include unloading charges. Once the goods received, we should need to unload. Dock charges, if they are coming from the ship, we should need to pay certain dock charges. Clearing charges, customs duty, octroi, and carriage and freight to godown. Now from the shipyard to godown, you should need to incur certain carriage and freight. Up to reaching such goods to the consignee's premises, what are all the different expenses incurred by consignee is known as non-recurring expenses. Now coming to recurring expenses. Recurring expenses are the expenses which are incurred on more than one occasion. These are usually incurred after the goods reach the consignee premises. Once the goods reach to the consignee premises, what are all the different expenses expended by the consignee is known as recurring expenses. Such include godown rent, insurance of the godown, carriage outward. Carriage outward means at the time of sale of goods to the customers, if you incur any transport expenses which is known as carriage outward. Establishment charges to establish your trading entity, advertising and publicity, salary of salesman, commission, and other selling expenses are known as recurring expenses. Simply non-recurring means before reaching the goods. Recurring means after reaching the goods. Okay, guys. Next, coming to the consignment sale. As per consignment contract, goods are sold by the consignee on behalf of the consignor. Such sales are revenue to the consignor. Such sales are to whom it is revenue? Consignor. These sales may be made either on cash basis or on credit basis. Sale proceeds are generally collected by the consignee and then reimbursed to the consignor at the end of the specified period after making necessary adjustment like expenses by the consignee and commission due, etc. Now, this diagram, through this diagram, what I explained earlier, here in detail explained in my material. Hope it is understandable by everyone. Is it okay, guys? Fine. With this, I'll close this lecture. Still, the concept of consignment is not yet over, and we not yet started even the one of the objective as well. We are having 3 objectives now. Knowing profit or loss from consignment business, accounting treatment in the books of consignor, accounting treatment in the books of consignee. Even we not yet started a single objective. In this lecture, just we understood as an introduction what is the meaning of consignment, and we seen what are the things we are going to learn this from chapter. Then consignment related transactions we are going to see. Here the name is, you can put it as consignment transactions. Just we understand the business procedure of the consignment. And we also seen how the general business is different from the consignment business. Am I right? So now you can easily identify who is consignor, who is consignee. If expenses given, those are expenses incurred by consignor or expenses incurred by consignee, or those are non-recurring expenses or recurring expenses. Do you understand how the pro forma invoice is going to prepared, or what is the meaning of account sales when it is prepared by the consignee, what it represents? Do you understand? So such all things you can easily identify right now. Sir, in the next lecture, what we are going to discuss now itself, just I'm telling you guys, we will discuss things related to commission. There are three different types of commissions are exist. What that commission is all about. Next, how to calculate profit or loss. That is first objective. Then including, connected to that, knowing profit or loss, connected to that, accounting treatment in the books of consignor we are going to see. And after that, we are going to check accounting treatment in the books of consignee. I think so almost these three objectives, it will take the next lecture. Once we will able to complete the next lecture, then if time permits, then from third lecture onwards, we can start the problems. Okay, guys, consignment related transactions or consignment accounting is dead easy, provided if you understand the nature of business transaction clearly. Bye. Have a nice day.